This is a CTOPTIC red laser sight module. So it would cost you $18 to buy this. I was sent it to review for free, but they haven't paid me for my review, so my opinions remain my own. Alright, so in the packaging, we have a little bar top mount for the laser sight. We have a battery. This battery says LC16340, 1300 milliamp hours, 3.7 volts. It has a switch, so this is a pressure switch that you can mount somewhere else and attach to the rear here to replace the regular push button switch. And right now it's not working because the battery's not inside. They don't have any instructions, so I'm going to have to figure out how to unscrew it. It's very loose right here, so I'm assuming the battery goes in there, and I'm assuming the tip should be positive up here, like so. Looks like it has the red laser module in there, and then it has a head here which has an X and Y adjustment clickers. So I'm hopeful that I can use this to sight this guy in well. Now, all right, let's test this out. I'm pushing the button, nothing's happening. It says avoid direct exposure to eye. They have a top here that comes off. It simply is covering the laser module. I don't think that is going to make the laser module suddenly work, so I'm going to take it out and replace the battery and put the battery in the opposite orientation. Put the battery in the opposite orientation. All right, and the laser module is working. So the battery goes in with the tip pointing towards the switch. And you can see here's the switch module, and if you wanted to replace that with this module here, you simply have to thread this wire through the hole, put that in place there, and then tighten it down on the battery. It does appear that you could replace the battery from this side as opposed to unscrewing there. I don't know which is the approved position to replace the battery from. It seems like if you have this little switch module in here that can fall out, it might be easier just to take the whole back off. But if you have it attached, so if this guy was attached to some object where you can't turn that, then screwing this out over here might be the easier way. All right, and so this pressure switch works very well. There's nothing that came included with this for mounting it, so you're going to have to provide your own double-sided tape or whatever mounting system you're going to use for this. There's a decent amount of length here, so you could stretch that out and get a decent amount of distance between the switch and the module itself. Now, this is not a super high-powered laser, but it seems to be bright enough to put a red spot out there. I'm going to be trying to use this with a telescope, and so I'm hopeful that it will make a beam that's visible at night to be used as a gross positioning aid for my telescope. And then I'm going to be very interested in seeing how well these guys here aim that laser beam so that I can mount it on my telescope and then adjust with these guys to get the laser beam pointed exactly where the center of my telescope is. So there's two covers here for the X and Y adjustments, and it appears that the X and Y adjustments use this same hex key that is used to mount and unmount the ring mount here. So those have a nice click. They go so every time you click them, you will definitely hear an up and down clicking noise. You can feel the click. So I think the adjustment should be pretty easy. We'll have to try this out once I get things to see how I can get it sighted in. Now the only downside here is it does appear you're going to need the tool to adjust this. So if you knock it out of alignment, you will need this hex key to turn that little guy in there to turn it. But once you get it in alignment, you can screw these covers on and it's not going to go anywhere. All right, outside at night,
this laser points a dot. You can definitely see it on targets. So as a aiming aid, it's going to be just fine. Now, unfortunately for me, it does not really shine a visible beam into the atmosphere, so it will not be appropriate for astronomy usage. So this would be fine on gun, aiming a gun. You know, you can definitely see where it's pointing at, but it is not strong enough to project a beam into the atmosphere to see where a telescope is pointing. So that's unfortunate for me.
All right, so I guess my biggest concern with this laser sight is that it does not include a recharger for this battery here. And I'm not even 100% certain that this is a rechargeable battery. It looks like it should be a rechargeable lithium-ion battery, but it's a relatively non-standard size. You know, it's not an 18650 cell, it's a 16340 cell. So I'm going to read a little bit about this, make sure it is rechargeable, and then I'll put it in my charge-discharge tester to see if it actually lives up to its 1300 milliamp hour rating that's on the side of the battery. But realistically, because this is an intermittent device that you just turn on very infrequently, I suspect this battery will drive it for a long time before you need to worry about recharging it. But if you don't have a charger for a 3.7 volt kind of short stubby cell battery here, you will eventually need to get one if you deplete the battery. All right, did a little research online. These are not a super uncommon battery. You can find chargers for the 16340 lithium-ion batteries online. You may or may not be able to find them in your local retail store, but you can certainly order a charger for this battery for, less than $20. All right, since they ship the battery with a charge in it and they don't include a battery charger, I am going to test it as it came out of the box, and I am specifically doing a discharge test. So we're going to see how many milliamp hours it has in it just out of the bag. All right, so my discharge here is not drawing any more current. It's down to 3.63 volts, which I don't think is fully discharged. And it says 143 milliamp hours is how much it took out. Okay, we're going to put this into my lithium-ion charger, and we are going to do a charge test on this guy and see how much power capacity it can hold. Alright, so this test says the battery has 215 milliamp hours capacity, which is significantly less than the 1300 rated on the body of the battery. Yeah, so this guy did another charge-discharge test, and it's coming out at 215 milliamp hours, which is significantly less than the 1300 that it's listed as. Okay, it is 12:28 p.m. on Friday, and we have turned on this laser pointer, and we're going to run the time-lapse camera and see how long that little battery just runs it continuously. Alright, it is 6:19 p.m., and that laser is still going strong. Alright, it is 10 p.m. The laser is still sort of on. It is, you can still see a tiny little dot. Well, I can see a tiny little dot. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but it's basically super dim, so it's basically not usable as much at this point. There's a tiny little spot on the concrete there, but it's really hard to see. So I'm going to say it's dead now, and we'll have to check the time-lapse camera to see exactly when it really started going to dim. So, this guy's fully down. We are going to just charge it, and we will see how many milliamp hours that takes when it gets fully charged. Alright, this guy here is full at 215 milliamp hours. So the provided battery is very small in capacity. It's a lot smaller than it's rated here. It's nowhere near the 1,300 milliamp hours it claims on the rating. But it does run that little laser pointer for quite a while, multiple hours. So it's probably good enough for what it's being used for. Okay, I'm going to test the sighting or aiming accuracy of adjustability here for X and Y. I just have this guy clamped to my vise, which coincidentally happens to be just exactly the right size to simulate a rail here. And I have the laser dot stuck onto this piece of gabber's tape I stuck on my wall, and I'm going to start marking where that is. So this is just my starting point. Right there. And we are going to give it a couple of clicks in the left-right axis. And it barely moved here. I mean, we're only like 3 feet away, so obviously you get more motion the farther away you go. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, I just did 10 clicks there, and we have a definite movement, I'd say a 1/4 inch over that way. Let me do 10 clicks back. All right, there's 10 clicks back, 10 the other way. Well, not quite the same distance in the other direction there. Might be loosening up on the spring. All right, so that's the original starting position. That's pretty good. We're going to do up-down now. Okay, so 10 clicks there, didn't really change much. Let me go the other direction. Seems to be loosening up and going down. Let me go down another 10 clicks. It's gone down slightly. It's also moved off to the side a little bit. Now it's really moving down. Seems to be a little non-linear, but you definitely have some positional motion here. So by changing these two guys here, you're moving that tube around inside, and you are definitely able to move where the dot is in relation to the orientation of the tube. So I think you could sight that in. It may not be as precise as you'd like to use like a linear calculation with a number of clicks to a certain number of arc minutes or arc seconds, but I think you could adjust that so it's where it needs to be. All right, so summary. This is a laser sight that's fully functional at night. In the daytime, you can see this outside maybe 10 feet away. So it's not terribly useful during the daytime. It's not super bright, so it's not useful for astronomy purposes. You can't really see a beam of light in the sky unless it's like super foggy or something. So it's not powerful enough for astronomy use, but it's perfectly reasonable for nighttime use on a gun. So this little pressure switch works fine. You push and hold, it just turns on. The mount works well. The adjusters will adjust the beam left, right, up, down. It's not Swiss watch accuracy. The clicks are not necessarily linear in the amount of distance they move the beam left and right, but you could certainly sight it in and have this thing work just fine for that. And it's pretty inexpensive price point. So if you're looking for an inexpensive small laser, it'll certainly function well. The battery does not have anywhere near its rated capacity. However, for such a small laser, it's like 5 milliwatts, that battery lasts for quite a while. And so, that's not really an issue in my mind, although it does not meet the nameplate specifications on the battery.